fertile mountain presence, painted magic, exiled pagan essence, golden nimbus, flightless, whimsy, risen, swollen, pinioned, sacred body, prison, ambrosian beauty, femme fixation, frizzled omelette, liberation, barren wisdom, seahorse, envy, lonely body, prison, known voyeur, hesitation, tiny fingers, liberation, her gestation, scarlet potion, liberation,
Hi, this is Ming from the band Project Blackbird. Thank you so much for watching the video for our track Baby Giant, which is the 4th release from our 2021 album, If This Is the End. And if you've been able to join us live for the premiere of the video and the interview to follow, then we're wonderfully pleased to have you with us. And thank you very much for that too, for making the time. As you'll have noted from the credits to the video, it was created by puppeteer and filmmaker Tony Sinnett. We first contacted Tony back in 2020 during the recording and production of the album. None of us had ever met him before or spoken with him, and all our correspondence and communication was done via email. In starting out the video, Tony really only had the most basic of material from us, namely the track itself and the inspiration behind the lyrics. Leonora Carrington's surrealist painting, The Giantess and the Egg. But we were very happy for Tony to have free rein and take the song in whatever direction spoke to him. Tony sent us a basic brief with his thoughts for potential narrative and themes. And he sent us a few storyboard pictures at the beginning of the process. Towards the end of the filmmaking process, he also sent us some clips from the video itself. But apart from that, we really didn't have much back and forth correspondence, and we were very eager to be surprised and hopefully enthralled by whatever Tony came up with. After watching the final cut for the first time, I think my first instinct was to go back and watch it all over again, because I just found it so rich and evocative. My second instinct was to set up a video interview with Tony himself, because I wanted to find out more about his thinking, his imagination, his background, the process of making a video like this one, and the process of making this specific video. Fortunately, Tony was very accommodating and agreed to have a remote video conversation. We spoke together via Zoom on the 12th of April 2021, and what follows is the result of that, with really very few edits, because I think what Tony had to say was just so interesting and eloquent. I hope you think so too. Please do check out Tony's website and other links, which will be available in the description to this video below. And please do also feel free to write in comments or questions that you may have for Tony too. Sit back, enjoy, and once again, thank you for watching. Tony Sinnett, it is my delight and privilege to thank you on behalf of Project Blackbird for the magical video you've created for our track Baby Giant. And also thank you very much for agreeing to speak with me about it. I just wanted to start by putting things in context and giving a little background to the collaboration. None of the core members of Project Blackbird, John Reed, Jamie Varley, Alan Roberts, and me, are particularly eager to feature in our music videos ourselves. So we've been talking for some time about asking another artist to just interpret and respond visually to our music. So John sort of stumbled across your work on an internet trawl one day and contacted you last year, I guess it was, at some point. He'd watched some of your videos, notably the ones for Kirsty Almeida's track Spider, and then Catherine Williams and The Pond, their track The River. And he asked you about creating an independent work of art for one of our songs, and you very kindly agreed. We then sent you 3 as yet unreleased tracks at that time from our forthcoming album, If This Is the End, and you opted for Baby Giant. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was just what drew you to that track in particular as a puppet maker?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for uh, chatting to me about this, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a video, uh, just in general. And I suppose Baby Giant, out of the three that you sent, was I liked all the tracks, but I think that was the first one that conjured some imagery to mind, particularly as the subject that it was based around. So I like the idea with puppets and puppetry that you can do things a little bit out of the ordinary, and the fact that it was written about a painting, a surrealist painting, I think was possibly what drew me to it the most. I also like the sort of rhythm of it, the beat of it as well was quite nice. It was a toss-up between that one and one of the others, but Baby Giant won out in the end because I think it was the first one that really something solid came to mind with it.
I remember we talked about doing speed of sound, but at the time you were a little bit concerned that David Blaine had just done his ascent into space in a balloon and that it might be too resonant of that. Or maybe
that was
worried about that.
I didn't know that was happening, the David Blaine thing was happening. And obviously when I looked into Speed of Sound and what the story behind that song was, that was the other one that jumped out to me, as I thought, yeah, that would be really good for doing a puppetry video too. And then of course I did a little bit of research and found that David Blaine had basically just done because the idea that came into my head was someone putting together multiple balloons to rather than one big balloon go up in a capsule, but someone putting together multiple balloons and going on a sort of balloon ride. But then having seen that was pretty much just happened, was sort of popped that balloon, should we say, and ruined that idea. Just because I mean, as it turns out, the length of time that passed between the idea and actually the final thing being finished, it probably wouldn't have mattered so much anyway. But yeah, I think that was what sort of just pushed me over the edge towards Baby Giant in the end.
Well, we're really happy that you chose it because we think what you've done with it is amazing. And you did just allude now to the surrealist painting that inspired it lyrically for me, which is Leonora Carrington's The Giantess and the Egg. And I know that you researched the painting a bit as well as aspects of Carrington's own life. So I was wondering how this other artist and her life influenced your choices, or some of your choices, and some of the narrative or characters.
Yeah, well, I researched the artist and her works and read a bit about her backstory. I didn't want to get too involved necessarily with her paintings and her style, because it would have been very, very difficult because her stuff is quite surreal. But also I didn't want it to be a sort of a total copy of her artworks. But there was a couple of themes of hers that came through, and one was that of street witches, which I think was mentioned in Mexico. There's a sort of tradition of Mexican street witches, and she has a couple of paintings. They're not the most easy to find ones if you sort of Google search her name. But I like that imagery that she had. She's got a couple of paintings with those in, the sort of long flowing black cloaks and that sort of aesthetic. So I used that as a starting point for the story, and then basically went from there and then turned it more into a sort of pagan story, using some of the elements of her other pictures, like trees, wooded areas and things like that. So that was really where the inspiration came.
And this along a similar vein, in the brief that you initially sent to us, you mentioned the concept of an egregore, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or sort of multiple spiritual presences or identities, and I'm wondering how that concept or the similar pagan rituals that you're talking about shaped the character / characters and the narrative.
Yes, well, there was an evolution between the very original idea of what actually happened in the end, due to various factors of time and just scale and being able to produce sort of things that look on screen exactly how you want them to do. But yes, the idea of creating multiple, I suppose, almost like out-of-body experiences, or it's a similar theme that runs through a lot of different spiritualities. They call them tulpas in the East, or so you can manifest things. Either you can manifest things by thinking about them, or you can use aspects of yourself to go and explore spaces, what we would call out-of-body experiences in the sort of modern day version of what it is. So that was the thinking behind that, and using some sort of witch type spell to go on a journey to explore other realms or other versions of this realm, should we say. So rather than being in totally different areas, dimensions or whatever, just different facets of this realm or different facets of your personality, returning back to nature or things that are outside of our normal thinking.
I love that. Thank you. Like the best fairy tales, your style juxtaposes whimsy and darkness, wonder and pain. I think much of the beauty of your puppetry is in that balance. My question is, can you tell us about your sense of play as a child? What were you like, and where did your imagination take you?
Okay, that's a question I've not been asked probably ever. I suppose it's difficult, I think, to talk about what you were like as a child, because what it might be more relevant to interview my family to ask them what I was like as a child. But growing up, I've got two brothers, and we were always quite playful, and we come from, I am of an age whereby there was a lot of imaginative play, because we didn't have all the distractions that children nowadays have. So I suppose there was a lot of scope for imagination. Perhaps we grew up in the I was a child in sort of the 70s and going on to the early 80s, and I think that was a time whereby you did have a lot more possibilities for imagination, because although you were given a lot more things, there was a lot of, I suppose, pop culture-y things that came out, like Star Wars and other things like that. So your imagination was opened up. I suppose before that, I mean, children had comics and all those sorts of things, and Dan Dare and all that sort of thing. So I don't know. I guess imagination was quite a big part of growing up, and the loving of storytelling as well. I was a big fan of Ray Harryhausen, his films, or his contributions to films, and he's the stop motion animator that did various things. Clash of the Titans is probably one of the most famous ones, with Jason and the Argonauts was one of his famous works. And now technically there's arguments as to whether stop motion is actually puppetry or not. But that was a big influence in terms of imagining different creatures and different realms, and being able to put them together and visualize them, and particularly visualize them on film. And I think he sort of kick-started a lot of that. So there was apparently, and I don't remember this, but years ago, my mother did tell me that as at primary school, I obviously had some hand puppets, and I don't even remember this, but apparently I was insistent that I had to take my hand puppets and my little stage into school, and I put on a little puppet show at school, at primary school. So there's obviously been something there in terms of puppetry and storytelling, but I can't actually remember that, but my mum assured me it did happen. So maybe it was always there. And just, yeah, that sort of idea of wonder. And I think that's possibly what drew me to puppetry as well, or puppet making and puppetry, is that you can create different characters and different worlds, and in the same way that animation works, except I'm not very good at drawing, so that was out of the question. So I'm a little bit better at sort of 3D, making things 3D, than I am actually trying to draw them on bits of paper. So I suppose it's just that's it. It's an extension of you know, just wanting to create different characters and just make them do things, sometimes silly things, or have characters interact in silly ways. I like having serious and whimsy together. I make a lot of skeletons and Grim Reapers particularly. I have a fascination with making Grim Reapers, and but I also like the fact that you could use that character in a playful and silly way as well, rather than it doesn't have to be all, you know, all doom and gloom necessarily. It's one of those things, unfortunately, we are all going to die at some point. So there's you know, if you can make the most of it while you're here, you can't avoid the fact that at some point it's going to happen. So you know, you might as well come to terms with that and have a little bit of fun with it along the way, rather than, you know, being frightened of it, I suppose, or being scared of it, or whatever.
Thank you. Well, I have been calling you a puppeteer or a puppet maker, and judging from that response, it's an integral part of your identity. But one of the things that struck us in the band watching your final video and looking at the stills that you had taken was just how many different skills are involved. So I would beg to differ about your self-deprecating comment about drawing, because you did send us storyboard drawings that were very evocative, if less fully formed than your puppets. But you've had to create this narrative, first of all, and make the puppets and the set. You've had to light, film, manipulate, I suppose, the puppets, do the animation. I don't know if you refer to it in that way, but physically animate them, and then do the editing. So I've probably missed some step out there, but I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about that process and the joys and the challenges of the different stages.
Yes, well, it certainly is a challenge. Again, I have to thank you for sort of letting me do my own thing and giving me time as well, because I know it did take a lot longer than I originally said, and that was not entirely my fault. Should we say, just due to various life things that have gone on in the last year. But yes, it is a challenge, but it's something that I like to do, and I'm learning all the time. And so to be given free rein just to do something is wonderful, because it allowed me to sort of see what I could do in some ways, and all the processes. Now, I have made a couple of videos before. You mentioned Catherine Williams one. That was one that we did, or I did in-house. I had a couple of people help me with the actual puppeteering, but again, it was all shot and edited by me. This one was much more complicated in terms of lighting and scenery and editing and things like that. So yes, it is a challenge pulling all those things together, but it's very interesting. A lot of the work that I have done on video obviously is all, or mostly, has been working for other people, and you're just a small part. You know, you're in the background doing a bit of puppetry, or even if the puppetry is foreground. You're still working to someone else's idea, and you know, they may pull in bits of set design or whatever, and it's varied from me just producing just the puppets, or maybe puppets and a few props, but it's not obviously usually very much, and there isn't usually that much in terms of input that you can put into the story. You can have some input into how the puppet moves and perhaps what it would do, but in terms of the narrative, you obviously don't get much leeway into actually what's going on. So it was good to have another crack at doing all of that. And yes, it is a challenge getting things, particularly when you can't do everything all in one go. To have to sort of then rebuild and relight a set and try and get it to match up to the last time you shot it. I know this is all things that filmmakers have to bear in mind, and it happens all the time, but when you're just doing it all by yourself, it is quite challenging. I did have a hand on building towards the end, building a couple of the sets. A girl called Amy Pilling helped me build a couple of the sets, which was useful because we were obviously running quite late with the project, so that was very helpful. But yes, it certainly is. It certainly is a challenge, and you know, learning as well the editing process, and then the lighting process within the computer as well, having to fix all the problems there, and then tying it into the song and getting it to match and hit sort of key points in the song, or hit parts of the rhythm of the song where you want it to hit and to flow nicely. And you get to points whereby you think, okay, we've got a lot of space here, or you start off when you think, you put the first few scenes in and you think, oh, this is really daunting, we've got an awful lot of time to fill. And then the more sort of footage you put in, you think, well, I haven't got this bit in yet, and I haven't got this bit in yet. And you end up and you think, I haven't got enough time to put all this, you know, there's not enough time to get all these things in at the right time. And you know, it's good fun sort of learning what you can, you know, what you have to chop out or what you have to cut down to make the story flow faster, or to add in to make it just a little bit slower to hit the points. I mean, that's, you know, inevitably it didn't quite end up exactly how I imagined it was going to be, purely because there wasn't just enough time to get everything in, and keep the flow to the rhythm of the, you know, of the song. So I was pleased with the end result, but yeah, it was certainly a challenging process, start to finish.
Well, we're really grateful that you did it, and it was well worth the wait. That was not a problem, and we're also glad that giving you free rein was something that you enjoyed too. And speaking of lighting, I can see your lighting is much better than mine. I'm just gonna like.
Who is the main character?
Yes, more on her in a moment, or is it a her? I didn't know if you ascribed gender to that character.
Well, yes, I was calling her. Yes, she's not a traditional looking witch by any means, but I do. No. It is a her, and I do like this sort of really sort of stylized face, almost surreal, you know, proportions to the face. So.
Yeah, it's marvelous. We've both mentioned the fact that this isn't the first music video that you've created, and you've also referred to the sense of flow and rhythm that's involved in the filming and editing. There's certainly I would say an aspect of dance too, to the movement of the puppets. I'm wondering what sort of role music plays in your life.
music has always played quite a big role in my life. As I mentioned, I'm a child of the 70s, I suppose. So I'm still, in a lot of ways, I'm still stuck in the 70s. So I mean, playing my father's records was good fun when I was a child, but it was a lot of Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and the classics from the 70s. Moving forwards to the modern day, it's amazing because there's so much music out there. I hadn't heard of you till you contacted me.
I'm not surprised.
but I can say I did love, you sent me the album and I do love it. I think it's an amazing album. I've moved, so my taste for in modern music style is much more sort of, for want of a word, it's more sort of that genre. It flips between being sort of modern folky, and I do like elements of a bit of everything really. I like synthesizer work particularly. I was a big fan when I was younger of Jean-Michel Jarre as well, and Vangelis and Tangerine Dream and all those synthy bands. So I do have a big love for the synthesizer. I'd love to be able to play the synthesizer, play the keyboards if I could, but it's one of those things that I had a little piano training when I was younger, but one of those things I should have kept it up and not given it up for other things. But so music definitely plays a big part. I'd like it's one of the things that does take me to a different place. I like listening to it late at night and focusing on it as well. So I'd rather have music that I listen to than have music in the background. I don't mind music in the background on radio, whatever. That's fine. But what I really like when I'm listening to music is really sort of focus in on it and have it sort of envelop everything. So I do listen a lot late at night, and sometimes particularly I'll use it to send me in the right direction before sleep. But it's one of the things that gets my brain working in a storytelling way, because a lot of the times when I'm hearing music, I think of stories to go with the music, or as not to take away from the music or the songs in any way, I don't think, but it's just particularly when you get familiar with a piece and a song, and you get to know it, and then you sort of build the story around it as well, and you can use that. But whether it's the same feeling that the artist had in mind when they were creating it or not, I don't know. But it's just something that's always appealed to me, and it's why I like, as I said, a modern music style is of more the sort of, I don't know how to classify music anymore, because there's in some ways music like yours. I mean, what do you call your?
Oh, I don't.
Because I can't describe it. So because it's so varied, you've got bits there that are basically, I would call sort of like sung poetry or spoken poetry to the music, and then you've got things that are definitely more of the sort of modern jazz. I don't know, what would you call it?
It always feels like a cop-out when people ask us, because we tend to say, well, it's eclectic, it's a mix of different styles, sometimes within the same track. I did, for one of our blurbs on social media, I used the term genre fluid. So I don't know if that helps, but yeah, thank you for your very kind words about the album and the music. But I agree, it's for me the best music videos will enhance the music and the song rather than necessarily interpreting it literally or just accompanying it as a sort of extra. And I think that's what I really love about what you've done with Baby Giant. It is a standalone piece of art to me, but it goes perfectly with the song in my mind, even though when we were writing it, I don't imagine any of us had in our heads the visions that you've brought to life. I do hope that the collaboration brings mutual benefits. You've now heard our music, and hopefully some of our listeners and viewers to the video who may not have heard of you before will check out your other work. So I wanted to know if there was any other work that you were particularly proud of and wanted to highlight here, and also whether there are future projects that you want to mention.
There's, I'm hoping there's a few things in the pipeline. Nothing I can say definitively at the moment is going to happen. I am working on my own projects, short films, but I've been saying that for the last few years and nothing's actually appeared. So I'm not going to put any timeline on that. Through most of my work is actually making puppets. That's what I spend most of my time doing. The making videos is more of a hobby at the moment, I suppose, but it's something that I'm pushing more and more of my time into. It's something that I really want to move towards. But like everyone, I have bills to pay and things like that. So I have to a certain degree, I have to go with what pays the bill at the end of the month. So that's why my own projects are taking rather a long time to come to fruition, should we say. There's nothing particularly I necessarily want to highlight as such. I mean, my website has pictures of puppets that I make, and that's that's how a lot of my income comes in, is actually carving, making puppets and doing wood carving and building puppets from there. But certainly if anyone else wants to risk me making them a video, I'm more than happy to do so, or at least give it a try, because it's something I think that it's something that I am really interested in. I think I'm going to spend a lot more time doing from now on. Now that each time I make something, I get a little bit better at it. I get a little bit firmer idea as to what is achievable and what isn't achievable, and what works with the marionettes on screen and what doesn't, because we haven't seen much marionettes on TV and film recently. There obviously has been a couple of films in the last few decades that have used them effectively, sort of feature films, but generally they're seen as a sort of something in the background, or something as a little passing fad. There's certainly no one willing to commit towards making films with them, and it's something that I'd like to sort of take the opportunity to perhaps push forward. I understand why people aren't. It's because it's very difficult to do string puppets, particularly very time consuming, very difficult. You have to write stories around them for it to work. You can't sort of necessarily take a story and then just do it with puppets, because they have certain limitations. They have some things they can do very well, and a lot of things that they can't. So that's I'm certainly going to be moving towards making more videos. I have got a YouTube channel as well, but that's mostly me just boring people about how to make puppets, rather than the actual using of them or filming of them. But yes, if you type my name into YouTube, then I have got a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. I suppose that would be the best help, is get up my subscriber counts there, and I will be posting more. Obviously, when the video comes out, I can do a bit of promotion from there. and I will be posting more sort of behind the scenes things of various other projects I do. But like I say, at the moment, a lot of it is just quite boring, technical, how to make puppets out of wood type videos rather than anything too exciting. But yeah, anyone who wants to go and have a look over on my YouTube channel or go to my website.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who won't find that boring at all, and we'll make sure to include your links in the information for the Baby Giant video and this interview on our YouTube channel. We can certainly highly recommend you to anybody who needs a puppet maker for whatever reason. And that brings me quite nicely to my final question. You had very kindly agreed to let us have the main puppet character from Baby Giant. And yes, I can see that she's in good company behind you too. How attached do you get to your puppets, and how difficult is it to let them go?
Sometimes it depends. It does depend from puppet to puppet. I suppose it depends why I made them, who I was making them for, and what they are. If they're my own creations in regard of that, I design them and I make them from scratch, obviously through to the end. And particularly if they do anything particularly fancy, then it is quite hard to let them go. If I'm commissioned to make a certain character that has to look a certain way and all that, then it's not so, it's not so appealing to me, because it's sort of, I don't know, maybe it feels like it's not entirely mine anyway. I don't mind making them. I'm quite happy to make characters that other people design, particularly when I do work for other sort of TV, advertising, film, those sorts of things. It's very rare that I actually get much or any input into how the character looks anyway. So I certainly don't mind doing it, but I don't have the same attachment to those. But yes, when I sort of design them and then build them, although she is quite a basic puppet in that regard in terms of the sort of build, and yes, she'll be on her way to you when I've cleaned her up a bit and sorted her a bit out. She did get a bit battered, beaten up and battered during the filmmaking, so she needs a bit of TLC before she disappears off. But yes, it can be quite hard sometimes, particularly when you've spent on some puppets an awfully long time making them. It has to. There's been a couple of marionettes that I've made that I've actually spent probably 6 weeks making, start to finish. 6 hard, proper hard, full working day weeks making. And then if it turns out well at the end and it looks really good, it is a bit galling to then think, oh, okay, I've got to let it go now. But the flip side of that is a lot of the time also I do end up seeing everything that's wrong with it, and I'm sure this applies to all artists. Sometimes you get so focused on it, and all you can see is the tiny little error that you made here or you made there. And it just drives you potty. No one else can see it, because or at least certainly not until they've studied it maybe for a long time. They might they then might notice, oh, that's not entirely exactly right or whatever. All this, but when you spend creating it, in some of the time, not all the time, but some of the time, you just think, yeah, it's okay. I can't look at that anymore, because it's got this tiny little thing that no one else can see, but I can see, and it just drives me mad, because it wasn't exactly right. But like I say, I think that's all most artists are like that. Do you suffer from the same sort of thing, or is it?
I think we can totally, I'm sure I'm not speaking out of turn for all four of us, but we can totally relate to that with our music and with the recording. When you commit something, it's no longer a work in progress. It's finished, and that's it, flaws and all. And the flaws will be from very particular moments of time and particular performances, and they can be magnified in our own ears. But we really look forward to all the stories that she can tell us when she arrives, and we look forward to welcoming such a hard worker into the band. And I'm sure all of us in Project Blackbird really hope to be able to work with you again in the future. So thank you so much, Tony Sinnett, for talking with me, and thank you for the video.
Well, thank you very much. I hope everyone enjoys watching it.